for joining this session. My name is Auke Pals. I work for KPMG. And we're here today in the AI regulation Unveiled session. What we're trying to do in this session is exploring AI regulation, and also we're trying to interact with you as much as possible in this session, so we can gather also your views on AI regulation and policy making worldwide. I'm here not alone. I'm here next to me is Lisa Vermeer. Welcome. Juliana is joining us online. Welcome as well. And Atmanda is here also next to me in the room. Welcome all. Can I give you the floor, Lisa, to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Lisa Vermeer. I work at the Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands, and one of my main jobs is to implement the European AI Act in the Netherlands. I leave it at that point.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ananda Gautam. I'm from Nepal. I work with Open Internet Nepal, and I belong to civil society community. I work in capacity building of young people and making internet more transparent, inclusive, and sustainable. Thank you.
Juliana, can I give you the floor as well?
Yes, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So thank you so much. I am Juliana Sakai. I'm the Executive Director of Transparency Brazil, which is an independent NGO devoting to promote more transparency and accountability under the Brazilian government. And this is also includes the government's use of AI. So we have been monitoring and working on how the Brazilian government is deploying, development, and using AI and producing recommendations on these fields, and parallelly also monitoring how our AI regulation is being discussed in the Congress right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is our panel for today, but we're here today in an interactive session. So I would encourage you all to join and join the discussion once we're there. But at first, I would like you to participate in a vote. So you can scan the QR code or go to kpmgvote.nl and log in with the code IGF 2024. So as a starter, we'd like to introduce to you the global impact of European AI regulations. And for this, I would like to give the floor to Lisa.
Thank you so much. Well, this policy question, I would like to start first with doing the poll online, and then we can see what gets out of it. So let's see if it works. So the question is, do you believe that the EU AI Act will become the de facto global standard for AI governance? Because it's always claimed that it's one of the first comprehensive AI laws in the world. There are many other laws, but the question is, will it become the global standard? So what do you think? Is it yes or no? Or do you have actually no idea what AI is about? It's also possible.
We do have 6 votes in already.
Don't be afraid to just choose something, although you may have a nuanced opinion.
I'm looking at the room. I guess most of them voted right now. So let's go to the results.
Interesting. So everyone knows what the EU AI Act is. That's a good thing to know. It's 55% yes and 44% no. Well, slight preference for yes or no. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your perspectives on how this would work. So for this session, I would like to share my thoughts about why it can be yes and why it can be no, and what is, in my perspective, a challenge for all of us. So if you look at the European AI Act, it's product safety. So the idea is that all AI systems that enter the market in the EU, in the whole European Union, you can assume that they are safe because the AI Act gets all the requirements together for risky AI, several types of risky AI, and if the AI system is in one of these categories, it has to meet certain requirements before it can be sold or before it can be used in the EU by the private sector, by the public sector, by basically everyone. So that means that for lots of AI systems, there will be requirements that make it actually safer. And then safety, you can look at it for it's maybe that may come with AI on these areas will be tackled by all AI systems before they enter the market. At least that's the premise of the law. So that means that these systems, when they are made by European companies, by companies all across the world, if they are made for the European markets, they will be safe enough and meeting all the requirements, which may have and is presumed to have the impact that lots of companies will build one type of AI systems to sell everywhere. Because of the EU's requirements, they will build a system, for example, for the health sector to use in a hospital, and then they will meet the requirements for the AI Act, sell it in Europe, but then also other areas of the world will benefit from the fact that this AI is meeting the requirements. Also, when it's sold in, for example, a hospital in Nepal or any other area in the world. So for a whole range of topics, that is going to be the case. And that makes me expect that there's some kind of, you can say yes, because it will set the standards, and then it will be the standard for lots of AI across the world. But there's a whole area of risky areas in the AI Act where it may be a bit difficult to say whether in the future the requirements for the AI will really be adopted. For example, if you look at critical infrastructure or of biometrics AI, they will be regulated, but it's pretty we can expect that some companies will build multiple products. So they will make the safest products for the EU, but then also build other products that do not meet the same, for example, data safety requirements or other requirements, and then they sell it in the rest of the world. You see that happening a lot. And yeah, so it depends on the incentive for the company, whether they are going to make one product for the whole world or just one that is super secure for the EU. That's why the yes is maybe a bit limited in the end. So I also say there is very much a case for no as an answer, because the EU is a very specific area in the world in terms of regulation. There's already a lot of regulation has been adopted for the digital economy and for personal data, for example, with the GDPR and also the Data Act. And there's really a very dense regulatory field, which may not is very different than the regulatory ecosystem in other areas of the world. For example, big areas like India or maybe Brazil, like Guyana, it's very different. The legal context basically where a law can be adopted, and that's why the AI Acts design may not be suitable for other areas of the world to replicate. And also the making product regulation is a very old way of regulating the markets. There's lots of product regulation in the EU, but it may not be the approach in other areas of the world why it's not that easy to replicate. And then another challenge that I wanted to share with you is that the AI Act enforcement promises to be really challenging because the AI Act is very broad and it sets rules for different areas, a whole range of areas, basically touching all industries and all public areas. And how do you effectively enforce a law? How do you make sure that the regulators, not policy and lawmakers like myself, but the regulators that are going to do the oversight of the law really are able to work with it and make sure that people and companies and organizations abide by the law. So already in the EU, this is a major challenge, and it's something that I'm really working on a lot and like wrapping my head around. And I think that is also the case in lots of other areas in the world, why it may be quite difficult to have a law like the AI Act in other areas, because how do you enforce a law which is so broad, and that creates uncertainty. So yeah, I think I leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Lisa. So I hope at this point the EU AI Act could steer us in the right direction, and hopefully could be adapted once we learn how to make use of it. But that's also part of the market, I guess, and also a part of the standardization bodies that that are involved in making standards for AI, which is also the bridge to the next policy question. So this policy question is about the actions for international standardization bodies. Currently, there are loads of standardization bodies um, trying to get involved in the AI standardization. But we also see some challenges for those global standardization bodies. And now again, a question for you all. What are the biggest challenges for global standardization of AI? So I would like to encourage you to vote again, and the answers will be on the screen. I'll give you some time to grab your phone or log in at this page. The scoping indeed. So what do we consider AI? Find experts, achieve consensus, compatibility, translate fundamental rights to technical standards, finding common ground, different views on the existence of human beings, AI staying or just the next blockchain hype, also interesting. Capacity of experts, local context, trust. Tough question. Universal concept, understanding that AI replicates traits of the mind and persons, integrate ethical and human rights standard language models. So we'll move on to the next one. So really interesting challenges, and I really think those are all true, to be honest. And we are indeed maybe in the early stage of AI and AI standardization. So currently, a lot of standardization bodies are active in the field of trying to come up with standards, ethical guidelines, technical standards. However, what we also see is that those standards are quite fragmented. All different kinds of standardization bodies are trying to deal with AI in their own certain way. And currently, we indeed see maybe it's a I don't think it's a hype, so I don't believe in being it the next blockchain hype. So as one of the participants you just mentioned. However, what I do see is that there is quite some overlap between standardization bodies and initiatives trying to make a standard according to their best practices. And that also comes to the second point I was trying to make, and that's the sector specific complexity. So what I do see in my work is that some standards are being created are quite generic, and those might be applicable for all kinds of AI use cases. However, some sectors do really want to get a more steering on how to make use of those standards. So, for instance, in healthcare, does require way different standards than the mobility industry for autonomous cars, or the defense industry does also require different standards, and they might even um, um, yeah not publicly shared. My third point is that there are really cultural and regulatory diversities. So Lisa just mentioned the EU AI Act, which is applicable in the EU and for EU inhabitants. And that's according to the EU way of thinking. While we create ethical standards or ethical guidelines in one of the standardization bodies, that might really differ where those guidelines are created, which can contribute to a good debate, which we might be able to have in the future on a global scale as well. My fourth point is, how can we balance this? So balancing between regulation, standardization, and innovation. So it was mentioned in a different session that I attended today, is how can we make also a balance between the regulation side of AI initiatives and innovation. So a small startup is not the first one to be looking at as industry standard, for instance. They'll just create according to their best practices and their way of working, which or regulation could hinder those startups in being innovative. And my last point is the dynamic technology landscape. What we did see in regulation is when the EU AI Act was being developed, generative AI was not not or not that big in the beginning, but later on in the final stages of the negotiation, it became quite big, and there was an urge and a need to regulate that. That's the same with standardization. Also, standardization takes a lot of time and is actually at the end created on the basis of what works the best. And with a sector that's being really innovative and really trying to take all the newest technologies available, this might be a challenge for standardization on global scale. And with this, I would like to conclude my introduction remarks, and would like to give the floor to Juliana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So we have like right now the policy question 3 with the theme enhancing enforcement through civil society. And I would like you to answer, in your opinion, what is the most significant role civil society can play in AI governance? Please share with us your thoughts.
Now log in, share your opinion.
So it's coming right now. Monitor the government. Awareness. Don't think in problems, think in solutions. Capacity building. Advocacy. Vote for parties that have good plans. Voice concerns. As user of public services, it's important to have a vote with consultants, democratic control. Reserve the potential impacts of AI system, defending and protecting values and public interest in, facilitating dialogue, agenda setting, participate in standardization process, monitor the government. So we're back again. So thank you for sharing so much, make the minority heard. Yeah. So I would like to, as a member of civil society, talk a little bit about the context we are now under the regulation of AI coming. But I would like to share, I would like to split 2 different contexts. So one is the context in which specific AI regulations are currently being implemented, like the EU, for example, or being directly affected, like the US, like Lisa mentioned. So the producers, the tech companies that are selling, so to say, AI system to the European Union will have to comply with the EU legislation. And the other context is where it's like Brazil, for example, we don't really sell products to EU, not massively technologically. So let's say the global majority that is not being affected directly, at least, by the legislations, but might have experienced an indirect influence. So, but let's begin where AI regulations are currently being implemented. Now, so as in new legislation, the civil society, watching a new legislation being implemented, the civil society has a huge role in shaping its enforcement. So since identify what are the problems, where implementation is not working and why, and advocate for institutions to take measures. So, but in order to do all these assessments, understand what is working and why it's not working, and then at the end, present these problems to society and to the institutions, we have to have like real transparency. So one thing is being able to assess information both from the government and the companies to understand what is working and what is not working. And so once we secure a list of transparency, then we can at the end really do like the report analysis and so on, and all the advocacy work. And the second environment is like I mentioned, where we don't have a specific AI framework nor like sell products to the EU. And I want to share like a little bit of Brazilian experience and civil society experience so far on AI governance without having a specific framework for this. So I think that the first thing we have to think about is really to understand what is the legal framework, the current existing legal framework that can actually protect rights in the context of AI use. And in Brazil, for example, we have consumers' rights and the general data protection, and both of them have been used even to avoid the abuse of some of the use of some tools, especially the facial recognition systems. And civil society from this point can present like complaints to Brazilian institutions, where, for example, the IDEC, which is the Institute for Consumer Protection in Brazil, has filed administrative and judicial procedures against the use of these tools in different scenarios. And for example, when the São Paulo's subway started to using it for marketing and advertising purposes and collecting information on the reaction of people watching it, and also in the clothing stores where they were also recording and capturing information through facial recognition systems. And in both cases, we have an absolute no consent of the consumer. So under this situation, the Institute for Consumers Protections won the case both in judicial and also in administrative sphere, and so that the metro and this clothing store stopped using. So I think this is more or less just what I wanted to try to start the conversations and make sure that even in the context where we do not have a specific AU frame and a specific AI framework, we still have a lot to work on the governance of these AI systems. And just to close it, we are currently actually discussing, as I mentioned in the Congress, or AI bill, and the risk approach framework has also been discussed there. So this is also where we, at the end of the day, civil society is also fighting for protecting its right on a more specific way under the use of AI systems.
Thank you very much for your great intro. And yeah, we really see the importance of civil society being active in this. So it's great that you and your organization is being part of that. Before we move on, I'd like to look at the chat as well. Where we saw. Oh, okay. We'll do that after the next speaker. And I'll share my screen again. So then I'm giving the floor to Ananda.
Thank you so much for uh, describing the role of civil society. I think Juliana has started doing that. So I'll be discussing from the global south perspective, maybe how we have been starting the discussion saying, will EU AI Act be a de facto regulation for AI? And I think it is the most comprehensive legislation that is existing today. And another kind of thing is it's extraterritorial jurisdiction, which means that it can regulate AI products and services that are outside of EU as well. So, in the context of developing nations and on the context of human rights, so the basic fundamental of AI system that we talk is about the quality of the data and the bias of the data. So, uh, looking from that perspective, there are two things that need to be considered. One is social thing, another is technological thing. So, uh, the fundamental data, quality of data is what makes or what trains the algorithm of the AI. So in the developing nations, we strive to get there are many challenges. We are talking about AI governance, but there still exists digital divide. And we are also talking about AI divide now. So there are still, in global south, if we see, there are still more than 2 billion people who don't have access to internet itself. And then the data standards, quality, the collection of data, I think that is very challenging. And without the standard data, it is very challenging to make the AI models. It might create bias, or it might not be as efficient as it was seemed to be. Another is technological, that in the developing nations, they lack the capacity to actually either implement it or build the models. Or if we talk about the policy legislations, they also lack the capacity to build their own legislations. And uh, after the EU AI Act, many countries are trying to get their legislations, but they don't do it correctly because they don't have that capacity. So how do we develop their capacity is one thing, and another is we are talking about how it can be leveraged in developing nations. It is, if used correctly, maybe we can use it to close the digital divide. Maybe we can use it to empower the population that does not have uh, as equal digital literacy as a person living in New York, or somewhere in the EU region, where the digital literacy is no more a problem, or access to internet is no more a problem, or access to technology is not a problem. When we come to developing nations, there are many other access as well. There's a language barrier. AI models cannot work in the native languages still. If we want to train them, we don't have enough data. And if they are trained using the publicly available data, there are other consequences of copyright and other kind of things. And this makes the development of AI a bit complex. But if uh, the developed nation help those countries to build the capacity, maybe this developing nation can leverage the power of AI to actually complement the issues that we have been facing, to complement giving them access to technologies, making systems more accessible in terms of language or any other barriers that we have. We might be able to even complement it in having medical facilities in the rural areas, or um, enhancing the education system by implementing the AI system in the education. We can create teachers, virtual teachers who can interact with them, or personalized tutor can be implemented. Or there are many kind of cases where AI could be leveraged in developing nations. But we have to be very mindful that this kind of considerations are made that um, it is a global debate. How do we make AI system more responsible? And that should be both societal and then like technological. If there are already biases in the society, AI algorithm will definitely be biased. Until and unless the bias in the society is eliminated, I think because it is based on the data that is available in the society. It is the data that we have created. So we have to be very mindful what we feed the AI system. That is very important. And if we do that from a, because there is one thing in the AI ecosystem that developing nation didn't have. Like during the 2000 .com boom, developing nation couldn't leverage the power of internet like the developed nation could do that we are telling today. But AI is in a very premature phase, and if we could accommodate the needs of those developing nations and then leverage the AI, I think we can make them way more prosperous in terms of economy, in terms of other social benefits. I would like to stop here. I think we have to go for a discussion and then like,
Yes, we have the poll here.
thank you.
So the question is, does the AI Act give possibilities of leveraging AI in developing nations while upholding human rights? No, not by itself, yes. I don't think so. Human rights is not globally enforceable. Yes, as a guide to develop local regulatory frameworks. Possibly on the contrary. Yes, global organizations, I think, are being developed, influenced, being inspirational only to European companies operating elsewhere. No, not by itself. Does anyone in the panel want to reject on the?
They're rotating, right?
Yeah.
I think there is something about global East and Americas will commit. So my response would be, it is like AI Act itself cannot be leveraged to upholding the human rights because it will be more focused on what can be done and what can't be done because legislations are always focused on do's and don'ts of something. But if we have rather policies that will accommodate the development of AI or how other nations or like the extraterritorial jurisdiction might also be how developed nation can help the developing nations to actually leverage this can be one of the options. Another is to uphold the human rights. There are various frameworks. UNESCO has one, and then like OECD is working on their second iteration. So those kind of frameworks could be one of the fundamental practices that could uh, help on ensuring the human rights, not in only developing context, but in the global context.
Thank you.
Yeah, some questions. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we plan to have like breakout discussions, but given the fact that it's already 5:45, we have until 6 o'clock. And we thought let's just do plenary, take questions from the floor and then also from the online participants. Maybe first the question that was asked in the chat. It was about Gaza being a test ground for using AI, which I think is very urgent and has been quite shocking. Thanks, Lisa. To see that. So I'm taking the question from the chat about Gaza being the testing ground for several sorts of AI. It's rather difficult to answer this question because there's a lot of nuance about it. So let me first say that the AI Act in the EU is of course an initiative to try to make AI more responsible and to avoid AI systems globally that really pose a lot of risks to, for example, safety and fundamental rights of people. But the AI Act is not touching all AI systems. So the context of it is that there's also a discussion about, for example, AI in the military domain. And also military domain and defense and national security is excluded from the AI Act. But that does not mean that there's no ongoing discussion about these areas. Even rather more so, there's been a long discussion already, especially on the international level, for example, about the responsible use of AI in the military domain, also initiated by the Netherlands. It's called the Re-aim trajectory. And you also have a long mainly Geneva-based conversation about lethal autonomous weapons. Of course, that means that Gaza was there was still a lot of AI was used there, and I'm afraid, that's my personal opinion, I'm afraid that AI will be used for very bad purposes. But the discussion about how to tackle this, how to disincentivize this, how to make this impossible is really on the table, very straightforward. It's being discussed between stakeholders, between governments in UN bodies. So it gives some hope that it's on the table and that there may be change. But that's where we are now.
Thank you, Lisa, for answering the question from the chat. Which is also a really urgent topic indeed. I would also like to ask a question to the audience, because in the audience I do see some people involved also in internet standards. And my question to the audience is what can we learn in the creation of standards for AI from the internet standardization process? So can I give someone the floor from the audience?
Yeah, I can say something about it. My name is Wouter Kobus. I'm with the platform Internet Standards. In my perspective, there's quite a difference where the internet itself was built on standards. And I think these standards really formed the internet as we know it right now. Whereas AI, although not my expertise, seems more to me as a technology is out there, and now we're trying to introduce standards to, well, limit or to control AI in that sense. But it's not really founded on standards like the internet was. So there's something to learn, but I think that's a difference between AI and internet standards in that sense.
Thank you, Wouter, for sharing your thoughts. What my reflection on that is that indeed AI is not built on standards, but indeed is now being regulated while the threats have been identified or have been more upfront. So now we're trying to re-engineer the wheel for creating usable standards in certain domains. Is there any other reflection from the audience? Yeah, let's move to the stats.
I have a question connecting to balancing innovation and control. So I think it's for you, Auke. Do you think that there is a risk that big tech says no to the EU? And if so, what can be changed to balance our vision in the EU and the vision of big tech?
Let me think about it. There is indeed a risk that big tech says no to EU, and I do think that in not only in AI, but in also other topics, the EU is being challenged by big tech. So your question is what changed to balance our vision in the EU beginning at big tech? To be honest, I don't think I have a clear answer on that. So maybe some of my other colleagues do have that.
Yeah, you see this happening because especially I think Meta is at the moment really ramping up against the AI Act and its consequences. For example, the AI Act is regulating large language models or general purpose AI models, which comprise large language models with the code of practice. And most large companies from the US have signed up with the AI Pact. It's an initiative from the European Commission to collaborate with companies to become compliant with the AI Act. But we now see that especially Meta, but also other companies are replying to this code of practice on GPA models, which are the large language models, and some are more constructive and others are really saying we don't want this because this is going to make it very hard for us. So I get this question a lot, especially during the negotiations of the AI Act. Basically, all countries were asked, like, how do you see the AI Act as a barrier to innovation? The idea is that the AI Act is not a barrier to the right kind of innovation. And because it's a risk-oriented approach, it means that a lot of AI falls outside of the scope of AI Act. But to be honest, a lot of AI also falls within the scope. But then the argument is that the EU deliberately choose to have a certain, we want responsible AI to develop and to innovate and to grow and to scale in the EU. And if large companies, for example, from the US, but also from other areas in the world, they are not responsible enough, i.e. not meeting our EU criteria, it's the kind of AI that we don't want. So it is a balance. But if the big tech says no to the EU, then the EU says no to the big tech. And it really means, do you want to have access to our market or not? And I think you see the upcoming coming of years will be interesting to see how it goes, because we have a new European Commission in Brussels, and they have quite some enforcement power also for the Digital Services Act, which is a large law impacting large platforms. And with the AI Act in almost a year, how will they play their cards? Now, we first had the Commissioner Thierry Breton, who was really individual and forceful towards, for example, Elon Musk. Now you see that the new commissioner has a more conciliatory tone towards the ex-owner. So it really depends on how this the law is there, but it depends on how it's going to work out and how forceful the EU is going to stand and develop the fines, etc. But it remains to be seen. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Lisa, for also answering the question. I saw the hand raised from Karen online. Karen, are you there? I can unmute. would you?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I was writing my concern or on the chat. So I think that the difference, for example, with internet, is that AI is not limited to bring or give information or grant information. The information that it gives, it's biased already. It Another concern is that it also replicates and improves human traits. It also interprets data, for example, when it's used on medical devices or neurotechnological devices. It will read this information, it will evaluate it, and then it will interpret this data, and then it will give feedback to this neurotechnology as well. I'm talking about, for example, these electroencephalography devices that will read, then it will interpret, and then it will send signs again to this neurotechnology to either activate or suppress some activity on the brain. And it is not regulated from the design, the development, or use. It is not regulated how it will be transnationally moved. So I think we have a lot of concerns. It's a broader concern because it affects many dimensions, many fields. And I do think that society does not fully understand the profound impact of using and interacting with AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Yeah, Juliana, do you want to reply on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your comments. I think that we have been always following what are the technological development and advancements, so to say. And I think this is really the place where civil society plays a big role, like trying to explaining what is going on, putting more information available, and make it. And when I say putting more information, is also like breaking what are these consequences that you just mentioned, right, Karen? So for each kind of use in each field, we have to have like civil society monitoring how the results are going on, and how the implementation are going on, how the test of each system is working. And I think that this is something that has to be parallel developed, sometimes with the help of the government. It has to, when we talk about a impact assessment, it has to be prior to a launch of a tool. And when it's launched, civil society may have the information and the data to collect and to analyze what kind of impact and algorithmic bias, for example, some tool is provoking, and how it might impact badly on inequality. So I think that this is pretty much the field that we have to work on for, at the end of the day, the civil society, the population, the consumers, the users as a whole have more info on how we should protect ourselves, right? And for this, also the organized civil society and academia and journalists are there to spread the information and support all the advocacy work. And this is really important because at the end of the day, the institutions are accountable once also if the civil society is demanding. So there is a flux and a kind of civil society demanding and the institutions answering to this. So we have to press and demand that the institution takes the action, the measures to protect and to implement the regulations that are being proposed.
Thank you very much for your response. I'm getting the sign already that the session is nearly to its end. I would like to give the opportunity for someone to reflect or make any last comment. If there is none, I would like to thank my panelists, Lisa, Ananda, Juliana, for being part of the session. I do also really think that much discussion can go on this topic, but not within the 60 minutes that we've received today. And with this, I would really encourage you to stay in touch with us through LinkedIn. Add us if you need us or want to start a new discussion. And with this, I would like to close the session. Thank you very much.